It's Thursday, it's 1 o'clock. And
We're back.
that means we're back again, just like we were last week and the week before
And the
that.
week before that.
And we'll be next week, every
Ever and ever
Thursday,
and ever.
every Thursday. That's
That's how we roll.
how we keep time. We know every time we see ourselves on the screen, we know that it's Thursday afternoon. Unless you're watching us at your leisure or some other time on a Sunday or a Tuesday or something like that, which you're more than welcome to do. We're on all of the websites.
We're
Where
everywhere.
we are everywhere, all at the same time. It's amazing.
How
It's
can we do that?
modern technology.
Yeah.
Absolutely on every
Love it.
platform.
Love it. Well, here we are again,
Here we
and
are again.
what are we doing?
We're talking about first impressions.
Right.
How how important are there?
Are they?
They are there. Eh. Um, do we, how, over the years, they always said when you went into an interview for a job to dress nicely, make a good first impression. And I always wondered, did that work for you or against you? In other words, if you walked in impeccably dressed into a business where you didn't really have to be impeccably dressed every day, was that going to make the wrong first impression? Or to get really dressed up nicely to go to an interview or to a special event and make that really good first impression, are you going to be able to keep up that level of impression?
Or what about first impressions dating? First impressions from meeting your significant other's family. I
Right?
mean, it's all over the map.
And do we think about what our first impressions were? I mean, do you remember your first impression of me when you met me?
Yeah.
He was
Yes, I do. You're Mr. Slick.
Mr. Slick. Why was I Mr. Slick? I was over to your house
You were very,
for hamburgers
you
and hot
were
dogs.
very gracious, very sweet.
Very old
No,
compared to
well, you
you.
were older, yeah. And maybe that's one reason why I didn't really trust you.
I was out of the army. She was still in college.
Mhm.
That'll give you kind of a perspective as to where we were age
But
wise.
see, I was wrong.
My first
I just,
impression was that I was slick, and so
yeah, not to trust
today
you
I
and,
ain't so slick no more. See, first impressions wear off.
no, I tell you, when you compliment me, I look at you and, ah, that's the right thing to say. You know what to say.
But I've always had been a one for words. Yes.
Yes, you have.
And I mean, my first impression of you, considering I was just out of the army, I had just relocated back to my old neighborhood area, was going into business with my parents. Uh, I had been living with my roommate for a few months before we went to your parents for the barbecue. And my roommate had fixed me up with a couple of girls, and I was playing the field, and everything was fine. And I have to tell you that I remember you were dressed casually.
Well, I was a barbecue.
You
It
were
was the
college
summertime.
college girl, home for the summer,
Yep.
and all dressed casually and all. But the first impression was she is cute. She's really cute. I mean, do I really
You were
want to
blind.
do I want to go down this road and all? And your eyes always have been like magnets to me.
Yours as well.
And I've
You
got
got the
blue eyes
blue
and she's
and
got hazel green eyes and all beautiful. And as they say, the eyes have it. So that was our first impression with each other. And of course, our first impression has grown to 50 years together. And I mean, I can still remember that first impression. And there have been a lot of other first impressions. When we were in business, we very often had to meet with vendors. And sometimes you had to make a good first impression. Sometimes you didn't want to make such a good first impression because you didn't want the vendor to think that you had bottomless pockets. So you had to play your first impression a little bit.
Correct.
Then as you
But you didn't trust them because you felt maybe you were just another commission in their pocket.
well, that's very true.
And
that's why you
that was difficult.
That's why you had to
That
play with
was
your
difficult.
impression and your perception
Yeah.
of these people. For instance, yeah, they've got a good product and I'd really like to have that product in my store, but they're also selling to 3 other people in the same mall. So,
Right.
I was looking at the first impression of the people that we were meeting as well as vice versa.
Mhm.
I have never, to this day, I have never been the kind of person that says, I've got to go out and get the latest fashion. I've got to wear, a brand new suit and shirt and tie, and in order to go to this meeting.
Right.
Because this is a first impression. I have always felt like this is who I am. Now, I would probably walk in wearing a shirt and tie, but depending on where we were going. Because you and I have often said when we've gone someplace that was not formal, but maybe semi-formal, and we would walk in looking very nice, and then you'd see somebody in a golf shirt and a pair of khaki slacks.
And you'd say, how come I just didn't wear that?
Yeah, well, my thought was, I don't have a real good first impression of that person because they showed up to a little bit nicer event dressed like they were going to
They
a
didn't have
barbecue.
enough respect for the event.
Yeah.
Or for the person who's
And if
hosting.
I was the person hosting the party or planning that event, I might have a lower first impression
But
of
I
that
think
person.
it goes to what we've been taught and how old we are. And I think back many years ago, you were taught that. I mean, I can remember going to visit my sister when she was living here in Texas and we were in Chicago still. And I got on an airplane and I dressed up. I
To
had
get
a
on the
skirt
airplane?
on and I had nice shoes on, and I think I even wore gloves at that time. I mean, you looked nice wherever you went. Now it's whatever you want to wear, whatever you deem
Well,
appropriate.
we just recently got into this discussion when we went to a really nice steakhouse in
Yeah,
the area where our cousins were in town. We went out to this very nice steakhouse. And for every person that was there wearing a jacket, even with an open collar shirt, not necessarily with a tie and jacket for the men, and the women were wearing a nice skirt and top or so. But for every one of those, there was somebody that was there in jeans and a t-shirt or a polo shirt, or a girl that was wearing a midriff type top and very, very casual. And we even had a discussion at the table about the days where if you went to a restaurant that had tablecloths, you
yes,
generally dressed up for it and you looked nice because it fit the ambiance. Today, you wonder if it's just that the owner or operator of that restaurant says anybody can come in wearing anything. I just want them to ring the register.
correct.
And so they have kind of lowered the standards.
standards.
It's very rare that you walk into a fine restaurant that will say men must wear jackets. And sometimes if you walk in without a jacket, they'll send you over to the cloakroom
Well, there'll
and
be an
say
extra jacket.
they have a jacket. If you don't mind, sir, we require a jacket. You can go to the cloakroom and help yourself to wear a jacket during dinner. We'd appreciate that.
They did that on our cruise ships.
Cruise ships.
You always had to wear a jacket. And now at dinner, now it's
Now at dinner is slacks and a collared
every
shirt.
once in a while, you'll see somebody in shorts and they get away with it. I think they're afraid to say anything to them, but they don't like it. Our kids who both have corporate jobs, they're they dress, but still not to the extent when I'll say to our son, is this a dress event? Oh, no, Mom, nothing is really dress.
Both of our
Anymore.
kids who, as you said, work for corporations, large
But
corporations.
yeah, but
basically both of them have said there are no dress codes
no,
anymore.
no.
That and there's a certain part of society now today that says it's not how you look, it's what you know and the presence that your personality that
What
you
comes
share.
through.
For instance, you may not be dressed nicely, but if you can carry on an intelligent conversation with the powers to be, that's what
what
makes the impression.
Mhm.
You may walk away saying, gee, they were a fine young couple. I wish they would dress a little bit nicer, but they're a fine young couple.
Mhm. Now, on the other side of that coin, when you talked about this topic and we agreed to do it, I was thinking more of first impressions
About things.
about someone or about something that you don't know a lot about, and how your mind goes to a negative or a positive, and then it turns out to be the opposite.
Yeah, well, perceptions and impressions are kind of similar. But you're right. I mean, your perception of somebody, for instance, you're going to I don't want to say a lecture, you're going to a dinner and they have a guest speaker, and the guest speaker is going to be talking about, let's say, some travel destinations.
Mhm.
Well, you may walk in saying, "Oh, we're going to learn so much about the South Seas or about, Alaska or something from this." And then the person is just talks in a monotone and
Just keeps
slide
clicking
number
away.
one and slide number
Yeah.
two. And you say, my perception of what this evening and
Was
this presentation was going to be about
yeah,
what
was not
fell
exactly.
fell short of my
Yeah.
expectations.
Yeah.
And so you're right, your perceptions can be preconceived,
Mhm.
and sometimes if they're too preconceived, you could be let down.
That's true. Very true. And I think that happens a lot.
Do you think that that's kind of the same way, for instance, in the medical field? You want to go to a specialist. I know you spend a lot of time uh, online. You may maybe looking at the doctor. You want to know where they went to college, where they did their degree, where they did their internship, references, information that's on.
Reviews.
Yes. And then you find out that, boy, this doctor really has got good reviews, good write-ups and everything. Then you walk in the office and you meet that doctor and you walk out and you say, got great credentials and everything, but his bedside manner is.
It happens a lot. Some of those with that bedside manner, though, they're one of the best doctors. It just kind of depends.
Yeah.
But we've done that. I mean, you went with me to a doctor many years ago, and very good reviews from other doctors that I talked to, and good reviews on, and his schooling was very good.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we went to see him, I'll never forget, big guy, like footballish, big guy, and Dr. Courtwright. And he came in, there's no medical jacket, nothing, just an open collared shirt and a pair of pants. Looked like he'd maybe slept in his pants. Maybe he'd been at the hospital for a
Kind
while.
of got the opinion he was coming in just to see if the room was okay. He was like the custodian.
And he sits down, and the way he sits and he talks to you, it's like a relative. And I mean, I didn't expect it, and just so easy to talk to, and some of these doctors aren't. So
And you
you just never know.
I remember, and you kept waiting for him to talk to you in clinical in a clinical way.
happened.
And he was just so neighborhood,
Oh, yeah.
jargon. And you kept saying, well, doctor, you think I should do this? Or you think I should do that? He said, if you want, I'll do that. If I were you, I wouldn't.
It was so refreshing.
And you just kept looking at me like, is he for real?
And then you said, I like this guy.
I like this guy, I mean, I like a doctor that, and we've had sports medicine doctors before.
Oh my
And
gosh, yeah.
even osteopaths and all that will say, let's try this and this and this, because ultimately we could do surgery, but I want that as a last resort. Our current orthopedist is that way. Surgery is absolutely the last choice on his list. He will try, medication. He will try shots. He will try, rehabilitation
Mhm.
services.
Yeah,
You
PT,
before he wants you to go under the knife.
which is
And
also refreshing.
it's refreshing because you say, I think he's going to say I have to have my shoulder, a new shoulder or something, a surgery. And he'll say, no, you know what? Let's give it a cortisone shot and all
Yeah.
to make it feel better for now. And let's do this and this and try these exercises and see where we're at.
Well, and then there's one other one that I went into about a year ago because my doctor retired. And I went in and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know anything about him. And he comes in and I think, oh my gosh, he's our son's age. He's younger than our son.
Yes. Doogie Howser.
But he had fabulous reviews and a stellar record of where he'd been. And I'm like focusing, I'm not listening to him because I'm focusing on how young he is. So
That
you
was
just don't know.
That was that first impression.
Yeah.
That,
yeah.
the doctor,
He must-
you're seeing
are
a
you
doctor.
sure?
This just happened to me with my doctor. My doctor
Yeah.
retired and said, I'm going to have my associate take over
Right.
your case. I thought, okay, fine. This young guy walks in and the doctor was gray hair and all. He had a lot of years of service and everything. And this guy walks in and he's, just like he got off of the racquetball court or something, he's fit and all. And I'm, Dr. Moody and I know you've been with Dr. Lehman for many years, but I'll be telling you, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. And I did the same thing. I'm looking at him saying,
Are you a specialist and are you
did you
really?
get your degree out of high school
Yeah.
or something? You went to medical school
But
and
I think as we age, this is happening to a lot of people as far as doctors. But on other things, people we meet on the street, people you might meet shopping or through other friends, and you have this preconceived notion of what they're going to be like, and it turns into being the opposite, either good or bad. But you just don't know.
Another situation we had when we lived down in the Florida Keys. You could go into a restaurant sometime, and most all of the nicer restaurants were individually owned and operated,
Mhm.
and they usually had a bar, and people would come in and sit at the bar and have a couple drinks before they'd sit down for dinner. And invariably, you would see there would be somebody sitting at a bar that was just wearing the typical Columbia type
Fishing
type shirt and pair of shorts
and
and
flip-flop.
flip-flops and all. And
And a musty
swore
hat.
you've seen that guy before or whatever. One night we were in a restaurant and we asked the waiter. I think I remember saying, that gentleman that was sitting at the bar up there, he looked so familiar. I mean, he looked like just a guy who was maybe down to his last few bucks, but he came in and he wanted to have a beer. And it was James Cameron.
Yeah.
Hollywood
Mogul.
producer, director extraordinaire who did Avatar, I believe.
He had a house in the Keys that we
Got
didn't know
about a
about.
$7-8 million house that's right on the bay. But when he walked into a restaurant, he was just Joe Schmo off the street and looked like everybody else.
He looked
in a-
worse than everybody else, let me just say
Yeah.
that. But that was part of the keys.
Yeah, and again, that plays into this concept of first impressions, and all that. Very often, two people could be sitting side by side
Mhm.
at a bar, and one of them was living paycheck to paycheck, and the other one was a multimillionaire. And to look at the two of them, they looked like they were fraternity brothers.
How do you, and so, but how do you turn that off in your brain where you just, you don't think, you want to try and be, what am I trying to say? You don't want to have any preconceived notions. You want to try and get to know them before you start
Well-
making aspersions.
For instance, with James Cameron, if he had walked in wearing a nice Versace shirt or something, and silk pants and patent leather shoes,
Mhm.
you might look and say, that's somebody very important.
Mhm.
And that may be the image that he wanted to transmit. He, on the other hand, just like Jimmy Johnson, the Hall of
Yeah.
Fame
I didn't know who
player.
Jimmy was either when he was running in the
Jimmy
Keys.
Johnson also would,
He had a
would
house
go
near
for a
us.
walk every day, and he had a beautiful home also on the bay.
I didn't know who he was.
Some people would know Jimmy because of his haircut,
Right.
because he just had a
Beautiful.
perfect haircut. But wherever Jimmy went, he did not want to look like Jimmy Johnson. He just wanted to look like Jimmy of the Keys, and would sit down and have a cup of coffee with you, and didn't want to be a celebrity. And I think that there's a lot of celebrities that are that way.
Oh, I agree.
Some want to be noticed as a celebrity, others want to just be an average person.
Well, I just joined a new women's group. And I don't know any of the women in this group actually. And when you just look at them and you talk to them a little bit, you're kind of getting to know them. But then when they start talking to you about their backgrounds, and it's like, really? You're just so surprised, either way, good or
Yeah.
bad. So I guess the thing is, you just never know, and never try not to make any, have any preconceived ideas.
Yeah. And I think
Of
that,
what these people
I guess
can be
that's the
like.
point of this whole conversation, is that not to have preconceived notions of people when you walk in to meet them. Let life just take its stride
Which
and meet
is
them.
easier said than done.
Yeah, sometimes they will show their colors,
Mhm.
and you may feel a bit inferior after you talk with them because they put themselves out on you.
Mhm.
But if that's the first impression you got from them, that may be pretty close to the impression you're going to continue to have of them. But other times you may be wrong, and you have a
You could very well
preconceived
be
notion
wrong.
of somebody and realize, they really are super people,
And
but I really thought she was a snob when I first met her.
And I'd like to get to know her better.
Yeah.
Well,
So you come back next
just thoughts.
Thursday and get to know us better and all, okay? Because if you have a preconceived notion of who we are and what we're all about, you're probably dead wrong. See you next week.
Bye.